Welcome back to Rare Gameroom Gaming. Today we're heading back to 1995 to explore X-Men 2, Clone Wars on the Sega Genesis, a title that did things differently, pushed the limits of the hardware, and gave fans one of the most unique X-Men experiences on a 16-bit console. X-Men 2, Clone Wars did something unusual from the start. Literally, as soon as you powered on your Genesis, the game launched you straight into the first level, skipping any title screen or menu. You began as one of the X-Men, selected at random with no time to hesitate. This opening wasn't just flashy, it was designed to create instant excitement and keep players on their toes. It's the only Genesis game from Sega that begins this way. You had 6 mutants to choose from: Wolverine, Cyclops, Gambit, Beast, Nightcrawler, and Psylocke. Each came with their own moves, strengths, and movement abilities, which made exploring the levels more varied depending on who you picked. And about halfway through the game, a surprise addition. Magneto becomes a fully playable character. This twist shook things up and let you fight alongside your former enemy. The game's story followed the Phalanx, a race of techno-organic aliens threatening to assimilate all life on Earth. The plot took inspiration from the 1994 X-Men comic arc, The Phalanx Covenant, which made the game feel fresh and current at the time.
Magneto has arrived, only in X-Men 2 for Sega Genesis. Now 2 can play the most mutant heroes and Magneto. Marvel's X-Men 2 for Sega Genesis. Hardware and game cartridge each sold separately.
Clone Wars was developed by Head Games, with many of the same developers who later formed Clockwork Tortoise, the team behind the adventures of Batman and Robin on Genesis. Before this, they made the original X-Men game for Genesis back in 1993. The one with the infamous reset the computer level, where you had to physically press the reset button on the console. The game was also released on the Sega Mega Drive in Europe and Japan. The Japanese version had minor difficulty tweaks and slightly different text, but gameplay was virtually the same. One standout difference, the Japanese box art had a slick anime-style design, a big contrast to the darker, comic-inspired US art. Each character in Clone Wars felt truly distinct. Nightcrawler could teleport past enemies and obstacles. Gambit had great reach with his staff and charged cards, and Cyclops unleashed powerful optic blasts. Their unique abilities made replaying levels feel fresh depending on who you picked. The soundtrack? Composed by Kurt Harland of the band Information Society, it delivered a gritty industrial vibe that fit the game's alien invasion storyline perfectly. For a Genesis game, the music pushed the system's sound hardware with layered, pulse-pounding tracks that still hold up. Clone Wars launched in 1995, near the end of the Genesis lifecycle. The Sega Saturn and PlayStation were already grabbing headlines, which meant this game didn't get as much spotlight as it deserved. Still, critics agreed it was a big step up from the first X-Men game: better controls, smarter enemies, and a cleaner visual presentation. After Clone Wars, the X-Men starred in X-Men, Mutant Apocalypse on the Super Nintendo, Children of the Atom in arcades, and later X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the start of the legendary Marvel vs. Capcom series. And if you've played modern games like Dead Cells or Hollow Knight, you'll recognize a familiar feel: fast-paced combat, character-specific movement, and tight controls. Clone Wars was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Alright, let's wrap up with some facts you might not know about X-Men 2, Clone Wars, even if you're a hardcore fan. First up, Magneto wasn't even supposed to be a playable character. He was added late in development after testers kept saying how fun he was to control. The team decided to let players turn the tables and team up with their former enemy. Two other X-Men, Iceman and Archangel, were originally planned for the roster, but had to be cut due to cartridge memory limits. Imagine how cool it would have been to fly through levels as Archangel or freeze enemies mid-air as Iceman. And here's one more. That iconic intro music you hear before the first level starts, it was originally just a placeholder track used for sound testing during development. But the team liked it so much, they kept it in as the final opening cue. Clone Wars might have flown under the radar, but it's still one of the best mutant experiences on the Genesis. If you like this look back, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps the channel more than you know. Got a favorite retro game you want us to cover next? Drop it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And while you're here, click on one of the videos on screen now to keep the nostalgia going.